All right, Parkside Part 2.
Parc on Powell.
Or, I'm sorry, Parc on Powell.
I was like, what is
At least you didn't call it paper mill.
I didn't even know. Where is this
Chair
place?
Moss, I'll also note that Commissioner Gunkel is recused from this item as well because he lives within, 500 feet of the project. However, he may remain in the council chambers and participate as a member of the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the fine print.
All in one breath.
Good evening, Commissioners. It's been a long time. So now we're looking at Parc on Powell, their major sign permit. So this is for identity for the actual project, not the tenants of the project. And this is at 1333, 1315, and 1303 Powell Street. Same as before, Powell Street to the north, Doyle to the east, Stanford to the south, and Hollis to the west. So just to familiarize with the addresses, 1333 Powell is the one that's closest, was on the corner of Hollis and Powell. 1303 Powell is the one furthest east along Powell Street, and 1315 is a little tiny building in between them. All of the signs are color coded as well as have a letter assigned to them. So we'll be going through and, whoa, sorry about that. We'll be going through and looking at each sign type. And similar to last time, the colors and codes will be shown on each slide. So the first sign, if you look down here, is on the corner of Powell and Hollis, pardon me. And this is the primary identity sign for the project, stating Parc on Powell. Signs are illuminated from the back, but the front is opaque, and it has a perforated metal siding. It's located towards the upper part of the building, the upper third of the building, and is illuminated and is some distance from what you spoke about during the last application where the public art piece is.
This rendering makes the sign look like it's glowing itself.
It is.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. But is it supposed to glow through it?
It'll glow out the sides.
Kind of, how would you come up?
Because of the perforations.
Yeah, the face itself won't glow. The face is opaque. It glows out the sides, and it will kind of softly light the wall behind it.
So this isn't very accurate rendering then.
Yeah, it's a little bright.
Looks like the letters themselves are glowing.
A little brighter than it would really
the
be.
wall behind it.
Yeah.
Okay. So towards the corner of that same building, the eastern corner along Powell Street, is another canopy sign. This one is below the canopy and is a leasing center sign. And it is not illuminated. And here's a rendering of that sign. It's a little bit difficult to see in this blow up here. So there's a monument sign located between the two buildings along Powell. Here we are. It's located to help direct people going to the parking area. And then there's several more wall signs. All of these are relatively small, ranging between 7.2 square feet for the retail and leasing parking, and then 4.8 square feet for the residential parking signs. And these are located at each of the parking entry exit areas.
And neither of them are illuminated, right?
Let me double check. No, these are not illuminated. And then additionally, there's 3 address signs, and they're each about 5 square feet. And it's hard to see on this blow up. I apologize. Hopefully in front of you in your plans you can see them slightly better. But they're centered near corners of each of the buildings. And none of these are illuminated either. So similar to last time, these have major design review findings opposed to master sign program findings. The signs must be necessary because of the nature of the establishment and location. These provide building identity as well as directional information for the project. They need to be no larger than necessary or be of extraordinary design. And these signs adequately identify the building while staying well under their permitted aggregate sign area, which is the 1 square foot of sign area per linear square foot of the project. So these signs are substantially underneath that. And the signs must comply with all provisions of Article 16, which is the sign section of the planning regulations. Additionally, the size, materials, color, style, and illumination must keep with the visual character of the area. None of these are illuminated. They're not obtrusive, except for, the only one that's illuminated is the Parc on Powell sign on the corner. The signs are also readable, proportional, and visible, and they fit within the context of the building. And lastly, the signs relate well to the building design and architectural features. The signs and colors and materials are compatible with building design and respect architectural features by not bleeding over windows or falling over the canopies or any of the other specific designs of the building. Required findings for the signs, they must be consistent with the general plan. And they're consistent with the general plan in that they distinguish Emeryville for the community and visitors, and it respects the existing architecture. They also conform to the Emeryville design guidelines. They are unified with the building facade and integrated into the building features and elements. They're architecturally compatible, and they're of a high design quality using high quality materials, and they're compatible with the building and surrounding area. So once again, Ted is available if you have questions, as am I.
Any questions for staff? Great, thank you. Would the applicant like to come up?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I didn't get to say it before, but thank you for your time. And I'd like to also especially thank staff, especially Sarah. This particular piece was very much a collaborative effort. It started out very different than what you see today, and a lot of that was due to Sarah's input and the rapid response we got from staff. We got a lot of great input and great notes, and we were able to kind of change on the fly. We had addressing issues and project name issues and all sorts of stuff flying around all at one time. So really appreciate the input, the response that we got. And then the other thing I'd like to say is that we did think about the neighbors across the street. That's why the primary sign is pointing perpendicular to Powell. And it's located in a place where there's no glare coming into any of our residents and really shouldn't affect any of our neighbors or anything like that. And really, that's the only lit piece. The leasing sign is unlit, and the thought there is that the activity in the leasing center is supposed to be really the focal point. So it's more of an informational, and really the bulk of the rest of the signs are really informational, help people find parking, park in the right place, and locate the leasing center. So that's it. Thank you again.
Thank you. Yeah. So with that, we'll open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Well, I think these signs are so unobtrusive that I have no objection to it.
I like the entire sign system except the large Parc on Powell sign. I think it's too much with all the other lighting that's coming from that corner. I don't think it's necessary for the apartment complex. It's not a hotel. People are going to come in and lease it, and you don't need an 18-foot long sign. So that's...
It's very softly illuminated, though. It's only around the side of it. It's not the front. The letters aren't illuminated.
So I agree with both of you. I think the illumination is good, but I also think it's a little too large, and that's partially because of the findings that these sign findings that I've never liked and still don't, which are sort of that, it's got to be no bigger than necessary, but it has to be readable, which is, I find those at odds with each other. But I think it's plenty readable, and in looking, to say it's no larger than it has to be, I think it's probably a little larger than it has to be. So, I think if it was reduced, 8 or 10%, it wouldn't be terrible.
Another thing, I have a couple comments is And it might just be the rendering, but when it is placed in the building, I'd be careful on how you place the park and on, because in the renderings, it looks like one word. So between the C and the O, I would probably create enough space. And again, it might just be the rendering and the angle that it's looking at. But when I first looked at this, I was going, what is that name?
Parson.
Gone.
Yeah, Parcon. It's a and then I have a kind of a concern because of the scale of the signs and the lack of them. And that being the parking. The public parking garage on 65th Street, when Aquarius was across the street, the owner, Patrick, there often complained that people said they could never find parking in the area. And that sign was quite obvious to me that there was parking there. This public parking this sign seems even more difficult to see. And what I'm envisioning is we're lucky enough to get a cafe on the Powell Street side on the park there. Someone's driving by, they see that, oh, I'd like to eat there. But where do I park? How do they find where they park? By just that small sign that is on Powell Street, and it's only about 6 foot high. So I think we're going to have people driving around the blocks or missing the opportunity to go to shops there because they can't. I mean, you got to understand the speed that people travel on that street. It's not
Pretty high.
It's not Doyle Street and it's not Stanford Street, but it's Powell and it's very busy. So I'm hoping that we're going to get a lot of businesses there who, some of them need their customers to park. And then once they get into that area, if they're lucky enough to find that sign, the signs over the door, I think, because there's going to be, what, 3 doors or just 2?
Yeah, in the alley there will be.
Can you come to the microphone, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you get into the alley, there will be, well, the resident door on the left will be closed.
Right.
So really the only open door will be yours, really, on the right.
Yeah, and so I'm just a little concerned that the sign over that door,
Right.
maybe we need something that
Projecting
comes out
sign or something.
perpendicularly, that projects out from that wall, so someone driving in could see, oh, that's where I go. But even today, I was coming home, and someone had double parked next to the construction zone in front of Avenue 64 to run in the leasing office there because they couldn't find parking anywhere. And they have parking for leasing in the back of the building. But it's very hard if you're unfamiliar with the area to find out where that parking is. So I'm concerned that we're going to have missed opportunities for retailers. We're going to have people driving around, maybe even stopping places they shouldn't stop to try to figure out where all this parking, where the parking is. So I just don't know if it's been thought out from a driver's perspective in a car, how they figure out where to park to go and,
When you really got to pay attention, because is it park
Yeah.
with a K or park with a C? But I hear you. I think maybe a solution to that would be just including, at least on this one sign that's retail and leasing parking rather than resident parking, just including on there as well, like the, sort of universal P in a
Right.
blue circle.
right. And I wonder if that P on the monument side shouldn't be more universal rather than
Right,
an artistic P.
universal sign for P would help.
Yeah, because I'm trying to get bike groups to use the green coloring, as everyone knows handicapped is blue and white. So if we can kind of get a uniform thing for parking and for bikes, then drivers will click onto that
Yeah.
instantly. So I appreciate the artistic element of that P, but and driving by and looking at that, it's not going to tell me that's where I park. And so that's just my only concern, is I really want to see these businesses, if we finally get them in there, Buzz, that they thrive.
Right. To piggyback off of your concern with the park, the P, how cars are going to know where to park, I'm kind of concerned about just the wording. It says retail. And I've never really noticed other places like this, whether they say retail or whether they say restaurants or whether they say shopping.
Yeah.
Will the average person know that retail means that
All inclusive.
it includes
Yeah.
everything, or will they be confused and think that it's loading for retailers or parking to offload your retail merchandise?
Do you pay to park or is it?
Yeah, exactly.
So what would you propose? Customer parking?
Customer parking sounds like a good alternative because we don't really know if they're going to be shops or restaurants.
But they're going to be a customer regardless.
But there will be customers.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah.
Would anyone care to make a motion?
I move to approve with the Park on Powell sign being slightly reduced and the 10% you suggested?
I think that would be
And that the
fair amount.
customer parking sign be made more
Uniform and noticeable.
presentable or something, more prominent, I guess, really. so
Right.
that-
Well, I think a more uniform, try to use a more uniform logo for parking rather than an artistic one.
For the symbol.
Can we just specify some sort of universal parking symbol on both of those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Signs.
call it customer parking and not retail.
Universal, I mean, the P being sideways looks like, I don't know. Yeah, it should
It doesn't
be
tell me
upright.
that's where parking is, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the sideways
that-
P is for Park on Powell, isn't it?
I don't, could be either way. Can I just ask the staff, is that clear enough?
No.
You got that confused look.
First, as far as the Park on Powell sign, you want it reduced in size, correct?
Correct.
Is that right here?
10%.
Did we hear
was-
10%? Now,
Yes.
this is 10% of the linear dimensions? Because 10% of the linear dimensions results in about a 20% reduction in area. So is that?
No, I think 10% of area was
Area.
my intent.
10% of area is about I think about a 3 or 4% reduction in linear dimensions. So 10% reduction in area. Okay?
So what does that mean for the linear dimension before we settle on that? Like how much shorter?
It's sort of hard
Pull
to
out our
say.
calculators.
Well, it's almost 14 feet long.
Okay.
So, get your calculator there, Michael?
Yep.
It would be reduced by about, got 0. I think it would be reduced by about 4 or 5 inches.
So 0.
So would you say 20?
0, basically.
If you reduce
I
it
have-
10%, it's 14 feet, that would be 1.4
Right.
feet. So that's about 1 foot 5 inches, something like that.
I have more of a problem with the illumination than with the size, actually.
Well,
That's me.
I think the illumination is just going to be a soft illumination. And I guess I have a different take on signs. Coming from a more artistic background, I appreciate the graphicness of signs.
Yeah.
And I think, seeing that driving by the freeway at night, it just kind of draws people into Emeryville. And I don't have a problem with signs being lit.
well,
I think
night.
it's going to distract from the public art. I think it's got a big light piece next to it, and I don't think it adds to the
gonna ma-
visual
What about-
composition.
What about externally illuminated?
Sign's gonna be
How do you feel about if it was externally illuminated?
that's not the way it is.
It is going to be externally illuminated by all this light coming out of the light column over
It's true
here.
enough. 'Cause it's-
No, it's not, because the
light-
letters aren't going to be dark at night. The wall behind it is going to
Yeah.
be light, because there's no light coming out of the letters.
that's
Actually, yeah, I don't know. I honestly think it would look kind of cool if they just put the sign on the light column and let it be lit by the light column. I mean, it would be negative lit, sort of, right?
Huh?
I don't-
What do you do?
No, I don't think that would be good either.
Well, and I think
So-
Commissioner Cardoza makes a point that this image is not really accurate because the letters will actually be dark, and it will be almost halo lit. Because it's the side light is where it's perforated, so the light will come out from the side of these. So the letters themselves are not going to be lit.
The side
The
is
wall will be
The
lit,
wall will be lit.
and the letters will be dark because they're not lit. Is that correct?
Yeah,
That is correct. The face of the letters will not
Yeah.
logo dark.
so it's going to be pretty subtle anyway.
Yeah. And then just to clarify, so if we reduce the area square footage by 10%, and if the height of the sign is still remaining to be 22 inches, it actually, the length of the sign will be more like 12 and a half feet. So we actually, by reducing it 10%, you would shorten the sign by a foot and a quarter.
I think they'd probably keep the proportionality of it, though, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would hope.
But I don't know.
Well, I think it's pretty subtle, and it's not going to jump out at you.
I do too.
because it's not illuminated.
A reduction of 10% It says here that it's 13 feet 9 inches, I believe.
Yeah.
So a 10% reduction would be 12 feet 4.5 inches.
So are we
Yeah,
getting
that's
much
what I
from
came
that?
up with.
Are we getting much of a reduction by doing that?
Foot and a half.
We're getting 1.5 feet. That's what I wanted to point out. We're not just getting 5 inches.
That's pretty extensive.
So it's pretty extensive.
And I would suggest that you would want it reduced proportionally in both directions.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 10% of the
That's
height
what
also.
Commissioner Moss was saying.
Presuming the light would still work.
So instead of 22 inches, it would be about 20 inches.
But that doesn't, mathematically, does that follow? If you reduce each dimension by 10%, I think you have effectively made more than a 10% reduction in area, right?
Correct. That's what I said. A 10%
Okay.
reduction in linear dimensions results in a 19% reduction in area. Because each dimension is now 0.9 of what it used to be, and 0.9 times 0.9 is 0.81, which is 19% less than 1.0, right?
What we're not seeing is what is the width of the letter. I don't see it on any of.
I think it's 1.5.
Thickness of the letter?
Yeah.
I think it's 7 inches deep.
No, not
Well,
the
the
depth.
letter itself is 1.5
Oh,
inches.
1.5.
it's about 1.5 inches wide, the stroke.
Oh, okay. So it's
Yeah.
There you
really
go.
small.
Skinny.
And in the P and the O, you're going to see the wall through those.
Yeah, you'll see the wall in the centers of the A and the P and the O.
Okay. So the lighting is going to be pretty low under any circumstance because you,
Yes.
Is there a way to show from his phone on the overhead?
I actually have a picture of a similar.
Put it on the overhead
I
camera.
think you can put it
That work?
on that and it will.
Switch to the, sorry, I'm not,
Oh.
yeah. Switch between?
Oh, look at that.
Oopsies.
But these letters are much bigger and thicker than
Yes.
what we're talking about.
Yeah, they're much bigger and thicker, but you can see how the faces go dark and just the edge glows
Okay, through the perforation.
through the perforated metal. Yeah.
so they are much brighter than.
Well, but the letters we're talking about, these are pretty deep. The letters we're talking about would be at least half this depth?
They're 7
Or about the
inches
same?
deep.
They're 7 inches deep.
And that's what these are?
Yeah, they're. I think these ones are 8, and these are proposed at 7.
And then the letters themselves are going to be thinner than this?
Yeah, they're thinner than that, and they're quite a bit smaller than these two.
So that,
It glows
that
much
concerns
more.
me more, because, I mean, it's
Yeah.
more lighting than I had thought. I mean, that's even, I mean, you know, shrinking the letters, that's, I mean, it's still that much lighting, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
but it's still,
the depth.
if you go all the way around each letter, that's a lot of lighting. that's
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that photo is making it look a lot brighter than it really is. It's a pretty subtle.
Yeah, you can
Effect.
barely read the letters here, it's so bright.
Well, these aren't mounted against a wall either, are they?
No, they're mounted against glass.
Yeah. So that's reflecting more light.
Yeah, and these are much thicker letters. And these
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So would it be something that if they were illuminated and then it became something that we felt was problematic and we asked you to turn them off, would that be something that that you'd be adverse to, or?
No, I think they're scheduled to be dimmable, so that we will be able to adjust the light level. So I think if you get out and you have the art piece that's underneath the walkway and the two are fighting, I think they could be modulated.
I think approving it with lighting gives us the option of one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just so you know, our fabricator's having difficulty making them that thick, 7 inches deep. At the end of the day, they may only be 4 inches deep.
That'd be awesome.
Because it's so thin, the stroke is so thin, they're having trouble getting a soldering tool
would
in
imagine.
to work on them.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to stipulate that they had to be thinned down to, 4 or 5 inches, I'd be fine with that.
I think that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Let's make that the condition, that you make them 4 inches, and that if we find them, as the community finds them problematic, and they ask the planning director to turn them off or dim them, we do that.
Well, we have that condition in there already.
There.
Sounds reasonable.
We don't have the shutting off, we just have the dimming in the conditions right now.
Well,
Dim.
right.
So-
I mean, I suppose you could dim to 0, but
That would shut them off. Okay, is that,
So do you want to read back what you have as the motion, Charlie?
well, it sounds like, oh, let's see. So for the Park on Powell sign, I have 10% reduction in linear dimensions and reduction of depth to 4 inches. And for the, replace the word retail with customer and include some sort of a P parking logo on each of the parking signs.
That's more considered standard industry, something that's more identifiable to customers as parking and not Park on Powell.
If you'd like to say the international symbol for parking, that would be fine.
international symbol?
Yeah, it's a
Perfect.
P in a circle.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So was that my motion or Buzz's?
I think it
That was
Buzz's
Buzz
motion.
made the motion.
Motion?
I think you did.
Yeah, you made that motion.
Commissioner Cardoza made the motion. Was there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, are we ready? Okay, on the motion, Commissioner Cardoza,
Aye.
Commissioner Donaldson,
No.
Commissioner Gunkel is recused, Commissioner Keller,
Aye?
Commissioner, Vice Chair Tan,
Aye.
and Chair Moss. Was that an aye?
Aye.
Okay. We have 4 ayes, 1 no, and 1 recusal. The application is approved. This decision may be appealed to the City Council within 15 days.
All right.